Organizational culture is not a set of words or concepts. It is a track record. And you cannot change organizational culture by defining new words or communicating new core values. You change an organizational culture by changing the track record of what habits do people exhibit in your team and what happens when they do. Let me give you an example. What happens when someone raises a hand with a problem or a question? Are they taken seriously and do they get their question or problem answered? Or are they dismissed and they learn the lesson that raising the hand was a waste of time? If the track record of what happens when someone raises a hand is positive, then raising the hand will become part of your organizational culture. And if instead the track record associated with raising a hand is negative, then that's the organizational culture you will get, a culture where no one raises a hand. So, culture is the track record. And you can change organizational culture by changing the track record. Defining core values and communicating them does not change organizational culture. It is not a useless exercise, but merely a first step. After core values are defined, track records must be changed. And this cannot be achieved using words, but only actions. Or, more precisely, words can initiate and facilitate the process, but only words backed by action count. Engagement is also a type of track record. In particular, team engagement is the track record of what happens when someone cares. What happens when someone works hard? When someone points out a problem? When someone comes up with an idea? Does it lead to good or bad individual outcomes? What's the track record of caring? Does it lead to good or bad individual outcomes? This is the key question that determines whether caring will become part of your organizational culture and which determines whether your employees will be engaged or not. An engaged employee is an employee who witnessed a positive track record associated with caring. And instead, a disengaged employee is an employee who have seen that in your company there is a negative track record associated with caring. Maybe there is a track record that the people who care waste their time. So, if you want your people to be more engaged, you must change the track record of what happens after someone cares. You should make sure that the next time someone cares, good things happen to them. Or at least they aren't taught the lesson that it would have been better to care less. Teamwork is also the result of a track record. In particular, teamwork is not about liking or trusting your colleagues. Instead, teamwork is the track record of what happens when colleagues interact with each other. What happens when someone asks a colleague for help? Does what follows teach them that it was a good idea to ask for help? Or does what follows teach them that asking for help is a waste of time in your organization? What happens when someone asks for feedback to a colleague? Are they listened to? Are they taken seriously? Or are they made wish that they hadn't voiced their feedback? Again, to improve teamwork, you must improve the track record of interactions. So, how do you do that? How do you improve the track record of interactions? The trick is to not address all interactions at once, all at the same time. Such a generic goal will produce a generic approach that will not be effective. Instead, begin by picking one type of interaction and work on that. For example, you might decide to work with the interaction of asking and receiving feedback. People will not ask for feedback unless in your team there is a track record that when people ask for feedback, they receive helpful and actionable feedback that doesn't feel personal. And people will not give good feedback unless there is a track record in your team that when people give feedback, it is well received and taken seriously. So, if you want your people to give more feedback to each other, you need to create these two track records. And achieving that requires, first and foremost, that your personal actions contribute to the new track record. When you give feedback, make sure that it is not just correct, but also helpful. Make sure that it feels actionable, and make sure that it makes the receiver glad to have you as a manager, rather than making them wish that you didn't exist. And similarly, whenever you receive feedback, make sure to take it seriously. This doesn't mean you accept all feedback as correct. Some will be wrong, but instead it means that you always make your interlocutor feel listened to. And if you disagree, you let them know why. And never take any feedback you receive personally, and never make any colleague who gives you feedback feel like they wasted their time. The more your actions show that in your team there is a good track record associated with giving feedback, the more people will give and request feedback. However, leading by example is necessary, but not sufficient. Not only must your people be open to give and receiving feedback, but they must also have the skills to do it in a helpful way that makes their interlocutor want to have more such interactions in the future. This requires you to train and coach your team on how to give and receive feedback. Note that doing politically correct things, such as forcing people to say thank you even when they receive bad feedback, will not work. Instead, what will work is to teach your people to give such helpful feedback that saying thank you will be a natural reaction. So, to summarize what we've seen so far, organizational culture, what your team does, what your team cares about, what your team doesn't do, is not a bunch of words, but a track record of actions and reactions. So, changing your organizational culture means changing the track record. Find out the behaviors you want your team to exhibit, and ensure that there is a track record of good things happening to those who exhibit these behaviors. Thank you very much, and you can find more on changing organizational culture on my website, luca-dell'anna.com, with double L and double N. Thank you very much.